1.7, chapter 1.7, talking about multiplication and division of rational numbers, and we're talking about converting now among percents, fractions, and decimals. That decimal squeezed out of my box. It should be in here. It escaped somehow. But we're going to talk about converting between percents, fractions, and decimals, and we're going to use the ideas of simplifying rational numbers. So we're going to fast forward through some of the stuff that we've seen already, and we're going to go, oops, past it. Here it is, converting among percents, fractions, and decimals. We're going to talk about in real world situations outside of math, beginning algebra, we're going to talk about growth rate of 3%. We're going to talk about manufacturer's discount of 25%. Kohl's always has those big discounts. 8% increase in pay. Oh boy, I wish. Don't get me started, but that's okay. That's another story. Those descriptions that I circled there are just descriptions. Those are more qualitative descriptions. 3%, 25%, 8%. We can't use those, cannot use those in math. We've got to convert those into either a fraction or a decimal. And when they're converted into a fraction or a decimal, then we can use them in our math. So how do we convert those from percentages into fractions or decimals? Well, percent really means per 100. And per 100 means divided by 100 or out of 100. So if I say I've got my 27% here, no examples here, but if I've got 27%, that means 27. I'm going to take away that percent and make it per 100 or divided by 100. And there's how I make my 27% description into a fraction. Percent means divided by 100. So you take away the percent, add the divided by 100, and now you've got a fraction, and you can convert that into a decimal, or you can convert that into, I guess, a reduced fraction. This only has 3's in it. 100 doesn't have 3's in it, so we've reduced our fraction as much as possible. We could also say that 27 divided by 100 is, well, if we divide by 10, we move the decimal point one spot to the left. If we divide by 100, because there are 2 zeros, we move the invisible decimal point 2 spots to the left, and that would be 0.27. So we've started with 27%, converted into a fraction by replacing that percent with a divided by 100, and we've got a fraction, and we can reduce that fraction, or we can say it's 0.27, just move the decimal point 2 spots. So let's take a look at this. Here's our cheat sheet, kind of, when we convert between percents to fractions. We can just remove the percent sign, multiply by 100, or sorry, 1 over 100, or just replace the percent by divided by 100, and we're done. All right, so let's do an example. Write 50% as a fraction. Well, 50% is 50 per 100. Done. There's my fraction. Can I reduce it? Yeah. Divide, well, let's see, 5 times 10, we'll go the long way, 10 times 10. 10 divided by 10 is 1. I got 5 tenths. If I've got 5 tenths, I've got, well, 5 divided by 10, or sorry, 10 divided by 5 is 2, so it's 1 over 2. We can rewrite the 10 as 5 times 2. The 5's cancel out. The 1 is a place marker. I got 1/2. And there's my 1/2. 50% is a fraction. It's either 50/100ths, or probably much better, it would be 1/2. So I've got 50% as a fraction. Write 50% as a decimal. 1/2 is 0.5, or we could go back over here and say, well, if I've got 50 divided by 100, I've got 50 divided by 100. Well, 50 divided by 100, if I'm dividing by 10, I move the decimal point 1. If I'm divided by 100, I've got 2 zeros, so I'm moving that invisible decimal point 2 spots. So that would be, as a decimal, 0.5, because I've moved my decimal point 2 spots. Same thing with 1/2. 1/2 is 0.5. Half of an inch is 0.5 of an inch. All right, 23% as a fraction. Let's try something different. 23% as a fraction. 23% is per 100 as a fraction. Done. Can I reduce it? 23 is prime. Done. All right, 23% as a decimal. Right, 23% as a fraction. 23% as a decimal. Well, we've got 23 per 100 here. You can do long division, or you can pull out the calculator, 23 divided by 100. Or you can say, you know what, I know that dividing by 10 moves the decimal point 1 spot. Dividing by 100 moves the decimal point 2 spots, because there are 2 zeros. So from here, I can say I'm just going to move my decimal point 2 spots to get 0.23. There's my decimal. Done.